My name is Viet Nguyen.
My name is Andy Nguyen.
Hi, my name is Ben Chung.
So my name is Paul Tran, and I do a lot of things.
I am a dancer, entrepreneur, and podcaster, and I am a co-owner of Kinjaz.
To be completely honest, I did not start out as a restaurateur. I started out in computer science, focused strongly in the hospitality industry. So I was looking at every ways possible that technology could help.
I've been in the restaurant industry for 9 years now. Launched a lot of different concepts, starting with After's Ice Cream to Matte Black Coffee to the upcoming Trail Burgers. Helped open, I think, 80 plus restaurants in the past 9 years.
When you pursue something that you're passionate about, the amount of work that you'll put into it is something that you probably aren't even aware of.
I think a lot of times there's a lot of excuses, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of conditioning that prevents people from just getting started. I feel like you have everything you need and you're enough to at least get started, and the rest of the answers, you have to find it out on the other side of action. You figure out along the way.
So I think the one takeaway is to realize that there's somebody that already went through the door, but also held the door open for you. I think the number one homework that you have to do is how to race toward that door and also keep that door open. So for me, that was most important.
The name Breaking Bread. Why Breaking Bread? What does breaking bread mean? What does it mean to you? Let's just go down the line.
Sure. Breaking bread has two meanings for me. First one, I was raised Christian, and so breaking bread always meant to pretty much you have enough, you have something special, and you're able to still break it off and share it with other people and take care of other people, and there's still enough left for you. I love how that translates so beautifully to the business world, where there's a lot of wisdom that we've come along the way over our careers, and even if we take a piece of our value and our experience and our assets, and we're able to share it with other people, there's still enough, and everyone's better for it, and there's still enough left for you too. So that's how I think about it.
That's dope.
I think for me, breaking bread is about collaboration, ideation. Breaking bread for me is, when we're, just like us hanging out here, we're sitting down, having a good meal, talking about different ideas, and a lot of things come from it, whether it's us becoming partnerships, advice, new things that spark from it. But I think that's a big part of breaking bread for me.
Yeah, and I think we came up with a bunch of different names, and obviously you guys chose this one. And for me, it's just sharing and it's caring. Just go back to amplify your message. So sharing is caring.
That's dope. I think I know I've known Andy for a really long time, Viet and Paul. I kind of recently met you guys, but even in preparation for this event, we met a good handful of times to even understand each other's stories and kind of like the beginnings. I mean, we're looking at all these amazing food concepts, behind us. I feel like everybody's story is so important. And as we were talking earlier, I was asking you about the names of your restaurants. And I think, we can go into what those names mean, but I think the power of breaking bread is storytelling, right? Like we sit down, we have a meal, and we share stories. And
Exactly.
The meal is kind of like the connector. It's like that's the collaborator, right? But can you guys tell a little bit about the importance of storytelling and how you incorporate that into the concepts that you guys have built?
Start with me?
Sure.
All right, so that's the thing, right? So I came here as an international student. And so obviously I wasn't born here. So I couldn't really fit into the first generation, or I couldn't fit into the second generation because they're also born here. The first generation was a little bit further than what I could kind of connect to. Obviously, they also went through a lot more than I could imagine. I mean, I flew here on a plane, sitting in a chair on the sky, it's not what they're going through. So I couldn't really connect. So I name myself as a 1.5 generation, which is we're not sure where we're at. We're confused. We don't have a voice. So sharing a meal would bring people together, how I felt. So pinpointing when I was growing up, I really wanted to just tackle the biggest problem in humanity, right? Obviously, when you're younger, you always think big. And once you get a little bit older, your dream gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But for me, I felt food and shelter are the two biggest problems that humanity face, because that's practically the only two things that you absolutely need. I don't know how to do real estate. I don't know how to do shelters. So food was something that's natural to me. So sharing something over a meal would bring people together. I knew that. And so restaurant was natural to me. The first concept we created was Soup Noodle Bar. That was my first introductions, my first hello. And so soup in Vietnamese means broth. And I think that's the most important thing. So that was the story I was trying to tell. The second concept we did was box kitchen. And in Latin, it means voice. And it's literally that, because I moved from LA all the way down to Orange County. So finding that voice was difficult for me. And so if you look at all of the names that we name all of our restaurants, it's literally my mental health at that time. That was a mark in history of what telling me what I think at that time I want to tell that story. So Vox was my voice, like how do I even fit in? And how can I bring the first generation, the 1.5 generation, and the second generation to sit at one table, share a meal, and talk about things? And then the next thing that we wanted to do was, obviously we felt all of the staff needed a place that they can shine. So we felt, in Little Saigon, we need a gem, a little gem that we can find. We literally didn't even want to put a name on the door, because we want people to find us because we're a hidden gem. Actually, I stole it from you, because you never put a sign on your after ice cream.
Because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah, true that. And so that was a North Star for all of our staff to hey, if you really work hard, you can go to Gem and do anything you want. Bam, COVID hits, right? And that out of nowhere, we don't know what to do. So at that time, to kind of rescue the company, we had to create a bunch of other brands so that we can operate out of Gem. And so we found another brand called Nếp Cafe. Have you guys been to Nếp Cafe? And so the only reason why is because at that time, I missed Vietnam so much, I couldn't go back. Nobody in Vietnam can come here. Everything was shut down. So everyone was coming to me and was like, hey, we really miss Vietnam. We really miss the routine in the morning, get a cup of coffee. I'm like, routine. Routine Vietnamese means nếp. Let's do it. So we actually put out a bunch of stool in the front, just like the street of Saigon and Hanoi, and people just have a cup of coffee and call it Nếp Cafe. At that time, it was just, if we can't go to Vietnam, I'll bring Vietnam to them, right? And then during that time too, all of our teams start to kind of break off a little bit. The pandemic really broke us apart. And so how do we mend it all together? And in Japanese, there's a word called kintsugi. When a bowl is broken, you don't just throw it away. You mend it together using gold. You show off your scars. And so we use that as a North Star for our Japanese cuisine. And so Kin Craft Ramen came out because kintsugi.
That's dope.
So we have to mend our team together using gold. We have to show our scars. Scars are okay. And then during also that time, a friend of mine come to me crying her eyes out. I'm like, hey, my life is falling apart. I have this restaurant. I don't know what to do with it. I can't sell it. I put so much money into it. And if I sell it right now, I'm going to lose all of my money. And so I have to come back and beg the team, hey, we got to help them out. We didn't even know what to do with it. We took the space, and it's called a cure at that time. And we took it within 6 months. We didn't even know how to work sushi. So we have to really learn sushi from scratch and tell that story of okay, the power of helping other people, sometimes will return back to you. And we shut that down. In 6 weeks, we turned into a roll hand roll bar. Not knowing how to do sushi at that time, I didn't want to just go out and do a restaurant. And people ask me all the time, how do you come up with the idea? And I didn't. I was forced to. I needed help from my friend. And now with that, we have second location, and the third location is coming on board.
That's amazing.
And as you can see, that's all kind of my mental stage, things that happen in our life. And when I talked to the team, they really supported me. And we found another restaurant, right in front of Box Kitchen. It's called Tip Top Sandwich. And they were struggling, and they really leave a beautiful space. And I remember that the first restaurant, I call it Gem, but also me and my partner was both Gemini. So the first restaurant is Gem. It's naturally that we call the second restaurant Enai. It's a Gemini. That's why the first restaurant has an olive tree, and the second restaurant also have the second olive tree. It's kind of like a match. And as time goes along, I mean, we can go on and on about all these different names, but you know, even our own company right now, we call it Kei Concept because at that time, I was at the lowest point of my life. She was born, my daughter was born, her name is Kira. And so my wife came to me like, name it after her, and we're gonna fight for her future. And so we call it Kei Concepts. Because all of these names have all the meanings. And as you can see, like, that's just a story I'm trying to tell. Trying to tell a story through food. And so
dope.
that's what it
dope.
means.
Yeah, give it up for that. That's dope. You know, as you're talking about, I mean, like you said, mental health. I mean, this is also mental health awareness month, as well as AAPI month. Shout out all the Asian folks in the audience. I think that's so dope because you're telling a story that means something to your life, and then you get to put it into reality and put it out there, and people get to kind of join in on your story. And as they taste the food, as they hear the story, there is a connection to it. I mean, great food is a dime a dozen, right? I mean, there's restaurants everywhere, and most of them are good. But the thing that makes somebody frequent a place is their experience and their connection to it. And so what I love to, even like, we tasted some of your amazing food, and you coming from Vietnam, but coming to the United States, bringing your experience from home, but also coming to a place that you're trying to make home, bring a part of home here, there's naturally this collaboration and fusion of experience, story, flavors, and then being creative even with like your food concepts. That collaboration, I think Andy's a master at the collaboration. I don't know if y'all really know, I mean, he's wearing his I Am King chain right now. If you really know Andy, this guy comes from like the streetwear scene, and that's how I knew him. We met back in like 2008. And he always knew how to bring a thing that may be seemingly random from this other thing, and then finding a way for it to connect. And that's like streetwear culture, you know? And so Andy, when you came into food, I literally just saw you like, oh, this guy's just doing streetwear culture stuff with food. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the mentality, or where you even learned that, and how you were bold enough to think that it would work with food?
Yeah, my background definitely ties. 9 years ago, I had no idea. I never worked a day in food in my life. I never worked a service job. I never did anything. I came from streetwear. I had a clothing brand, which had nothing to do with food at the time. But in the time period that I was in apparel, I picked up a lot of different skills, right? And in the streetwear culture, you had to learn how to become a storyteller, which you learn how I was blogging. I had to literally write about what my brand was doing every single day so people would stay in tune with it. You know, marketing, branding, shipping, generating hype. That's all streetwear. It's building stories, how things look on camera, a lookbook shoot, how pictures come out and how things come out for Instagram. Like all those things were encompassing what I was gonna take to apply to the next level. Even collaborations, like no one has ever seen these brand collaborations besides streetwear. So I was just painting this, I was like, hey, this is the blueprint of what I would do if I were to open a food concept. So I'll take it back a little bit. So when I was blogging, I had to figure out what to write about every single day, right? I was like, okay, well, what the heck do I write about? I'm not a writer, I don't know what to write about. So a topic that got really popular on my blog was what I was eating for lunch. I was like, I get emails every day, hey, that place you went to eat at was the best place I ever ate at. I was like, oh, really? Okay, cool. And I was like, well, I'm gonna go look for a different place to write about. And then somebody next week would be, hey, I'm going to New York, can you send me your top 5 places to eat? I was like, okay, well, these are places I blogged about, and all my food discovery kept getting better and better. And also my younger sister, she's like the real foodie in my family, and me and her are just battling it out on Yelp, trying to find new places to eat. And that's like building our relationship together, but also on the storytelling side, I started drawing down ideas of what I wanted to do. I was like, okay, if I were to open an ice cream shop, I would do these type of flavors. I went to San Francisco, I saw a shop called Buy Right Ice Cream. I saw these crazy flavors. I was like, okay, those are cool, but I won't do those artisanal flavors. If I were to do flavors, I would do something that hits close to home, that's relatable, it's fun, it's still a little different. So I started coming up with ideas like, hey, let's do a churro ice cream flavor. I drink boba. We're doing a jasmine milk tea flavor, but I don't like the color that it's brown, so I wanted purple because purple looks a lot cooler in camera. And then we have this Cookie Monster ice, this Cookie Monster ice cream. At the time, just looked like cookies and cream, and I'm like, no, we're making that blue. And my partner is like, no one's gonna eat blue ice cream. I'm like, dude, you need to make that blue because when it hits Instagram, it's gonna stand out there. So the first week we actually opened, he wouldn't make it blue. I was like, John, you need to. I'm not gonna say that. Well, you need to make this blue. Let's make it blue. So after that, to this day, from my knowledge, it's still 10x sales of any other flavor that's on that menu. So he stopped questioning me after that. But just the storytelling aspect, blogging got me better at putting myself out there, sharing more of my stories along the way. As I started developing concepts, I started putting myself out there into the cuisines, as just like Viet does. Like whenever we were launching a new concept, you could see whether it's the progression or the mood that I'm in, or how the speed I'm developing things. It just it forms into these brand new ideas and concepts that I can't stop thinking about. I'm like, hey, I need to bring it to life. How do I make it happen?
That's dope. That's dope. Paul, so I'm a big fan of Halal Guys. Big fan.
Thank you.
When I saw Halal Guys come out to LA, I was like, whoa, the food truck from New York is a thing out here. So I'd love to hear, so, I mean, you're not an owner of Halal Guys, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you are?
Hey, Phil. So Phil and I are partners, and we own 9 stores here in
sick.
LA and Orange County.
I told you I don't know anything, guys. No, that's dope.
Everybody get free halal guys after the show.
Thanks for volunteering that.
It's recorded.
Phil manages the budget, so we got to approve that.
Let's go. What was that? Who sparked that idea to take the food cart concept to make it what it is, and it's everywhere now?
Yeah. So I actually wanted to answer that question. I also wanted to jump off of what Vid and Andy said, the power of storytelling. I'm a little bit different capacity than them because they are creators. I'm more of the developer, where I take cool ideas and cool stories and I try to build a viable business around it. So I can't create anything. So I actually rely on these guys to build something viable, and then I try to build around it. But the storytelling aspect is so critically important because most of my work revolves around early stage brands. Early stage brands means, before they become a large brand, become a large franchise, there's not a lot of proof of concept. There's not a lot of economic performance to prove to your typical investor that this is a viable business, right? And so a lot of times that leg of the stool is not present. So where does it rely on? It relies on the storytelling. There's been brands for example, Halal Guys. There's been another brand that I grew where they actually didn't have enough stores. All they had was a story of being the most convenient. They wanted to be the most convenient choice for healthy food. They wanted to Starbuck the fresh food business. It was a brand called Freshie. They only had 9 stores in Canada. When I was tasked with selling the franchise to investors, usually they're like, so how do the stores do? I'm like, oh, I can't say that. I can't share that. But the story is they're on a mission, and I had to tell a story of how they were trying to change people's eating habits, be more convenient, just as convenient as a candy bar, junk food. And because of that, I was able to help put 200 stores in place without having to share any financials, because it's all about the storytelling. And people want to get behind the same stories that you're sharing. They just want to be behind the mission. Same thing with Halal Guys. To this day, when I sell a Halal Guys franchise to another investor outside of my territory, we're still not allowed to talk about numbers. We're still not allowed to share financial disclosure. It's all about the story. But to answer your direct question, sorry. I was consulting for them in New York City. I saw that there was nobody. Everyone was doing pizza. Everyone's doing burgers from a leadership scale, but no one's been doing Middle Eastern Mediterranean food. And so I saw a gap in the marketplace. I knew that a lot of people in California fly to New York for the chicken and rice. And I figured, again, your story about bringing Vietnam here, we wanted to bring New York's best street food cult following here, make it accessible. People don't have to pay $600 to get a bowl, a plate. So I built a team with Phil and a couple other of our partners, and we raised a fund. and through a lot of sheer will, we opened a bunch of stores, and it's been well received here. So that's the story behind that.
That's dope.
Sorry to cut in. How many stores right now?
9 stores.
9 stores in OC, but like as a whole.
We just hit our 100th store in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's off the
I double dipped. I consulted for them, and then I also
That's
franchised.
dope.
Yeah.
I can imagine. So, I mean, again, I'm not in the food space, but you know, when you are in any industry, there's the concept of like the competitor, right? Like like, oh, that's my competition. That's a concept that's similar to mine. That's my competition. Can you guys talk about that perception of competition? I'm sure it exists, but I feel like on this stage, like that's not what we're talking. I mean, I don't feel that from you guys. I feel like you guys are friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
No, we compete.
oh, okay.
Secretly hate each other.
Friendly competition is
We'll talk about
healthy. But yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, like the power of collaborating versus competing.
Yeah. So I'll start with that first, just because I have something that they can follow really cool. We actually do compete, but we're not competing in as far as like, because everyone out there, if you ask a lot of people, they'll say like, Andy, Viet, they're all competing, or Paul is competing. And there's nuances to that. So it's true that we're competing, but it's a very different way. So looking at Andy, so the second concept that I created was Pango. And I did not mention it in the last portion because I'm ashamed of myself, but here's the thing. At that time, I really thought that Andy was the Holy Grail. Still is. But I wanted to be the next Andy Nguyen so badly that like, if he can do that, I want to be it, right? So I created something called Pango, which is an Asian taqueria, and it flopped. It did not work. And then actually, he was in the space eating Pango at that time. I literally walked out, shook his hand, talked to him a little bit, and found out, oh, this guy is a really nice guy. You know, like we don't have to compete. But again, that space now turned into the Voss Kitchen, which worked out fine. But at that time, I knew that that's not my angle. So instead of directly competing with someone like Andy or anyone else out there, I was thinking of how do I add value to him? And if I can do that, then eventually whatever that he's doing, he can still do, he can still make a lot of money, but because I add value to it, the things that he cannot or he doesn't want to do, then it will make it so much easier for me to be like, hey, I'm not here to compete, but I'm here to add value to whatever that you're doing. So imagine this is a scenario, like real scenario. So let's just say Andy is going out there doing some crazy thing and figure out that this niche market needs something. If I am in the back end, I can build a whole entire infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I mean HR, accounting, admin, all of the stuff that in order for you to build a very strong restaurant business, you have to spend. Like we literally burn $6 to $7 million a year right now just on the infrastructure. If you ask anybody to want to do food, if they want to catch up to us, they could do a lot of the things that, you know, create brands and all that stuff, but it stops there. They call it catching lightning in a bottle, in a sense. So you have an idea, you catch it, and you can do 1 or 2 stores, but you need to grow it into 5 to 10 stores. But then it's also going to be impossible for people to do from 10 stores to 100 to 200, and that's why Paul comes in. And so looking at all of these guys, I'm like, okay, he's really good at scaling, and he's really good with catching lightning in a bottle. Where do I slide in? How do I add value to both of these guys where like we don't have to directly compete? We're competitive, but we're not directly compete, but we add value to it. So for example, right now, let's just very simple, let's just say Voss Kitchen. So let's just say Voss Kitchen do $10 million a year. If I can catch that and I can package that, right? And then let's just say I can give it to Paul and Paul can multiply it, you know, and just, let's say 2 stores per state. That's a $1 billion business right off the bat, no question asked, right? Or if Andy, let's say he created Born Hungry, And right now, essentially, he's packaged it and give it to Paul, and Paul just sell like how many stores you sell? I think you just opened one in Philippines.
We just worked on a deal to bring it to the Philippines and South Korea. Yep.
And that could multiply as well. And obviously, and people look at us too sometimes and think, well, this guy's not really focused, right? Because I'm doing a lot of different brands, or Andy's not really focused because he's doing a lot of different brands, or Paul as well. But people forgot one thing is that's not our product. All of the brands that we're creating is just a byproduct of our real product. The real product is actually our infrastructure, our brand, our behind the scene. You know, Kei Concept is the real product. That's what we're building. Everything else that you see from soup, box, can, roll, anything you see is actually just a byproduct about the main product that we're building. The software, the engineering, the back end, the things that really burn money is actually the infrastructure. And so, yes, we're very competitive. You know, every time this guy opened the very first NFT restaurants. I was like, I knew that was going to be a thing. That was supposed to be, like, I should have done that, but I didn't. And then he beat me to it, and I'm like, damn it. But then, you know, I'm so happy because when you have that competitive landscape and they get into more markets than you do, and then you're like, dude, that's a brand new market I didn't know about. And obviously, he's not going to be able to just grow by himself. He needs a team, right? Hey, Andy, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Right? And then so I can kind of help him kind of grow with that, any ideas that he might come up. And once we kind of like package it into a very nice packaging, that's when we pass it to Paul, like, Paul, multiply it to 100. That's what we do. And so now that's where the collaboration is the real main thing, but we're very competitive of like who's figuring out what's hot next. Right? And if I figure out something really hot and I come back to him, ask him all the time, like, what do you think out of all of my brands, which one should I grow? And we all agree on one brand. Or if I see something that I tell him, like, I don't think that's going to be the cool thing that you should be working on. I say, yeah, I know. I did that at that time for that very specific purpose. But in the long run, you know, I think this is my real thing. And then Paul just sitting back and like, look at these guys. Out of everything, I think I'm going to take one of this, one of that, and I'm going to scale it. And so I think that's where we really gel in together. We have not actually had a project together, but imagine that power of like, if I can build that infrastructure out within the next 2 years or so, it's golden. We can literally make not millions, I'm talking about billions with a B. And so we're not there yet, but I feel that I feel that breath is coming. So, I don't know if you want to piggyback on that.
How you feel about that, bro?
I think he nailed it. He nailed it, and we talk about it all the time. When, you know, even though we naturally haven't worked together, we still, you know, feed off of each other and share ideas. We share knowledge, rooting each other on. And me and Paul, fortunately, we've traveled literally around the world together. We've been to a lot of different places and working on different concepts. And if I'm opening if I'm looking to scale any of my restaurants overseas, I'm not looking at the paperwork. I'm like, here, Paul, you got this. I'm not looking at this gibberish. You figure it out for me. Make sure I'm safe. Take care of it. You talk to this guy for me. I don't know what he's talking about. You got this.
Yeah, usually when he gives me something, I usually come back, oh, it's closed. We got a deal done. No, but another perspective about not competing and collaboration is, I think that, and I was just talking with Tommy from Cross Street over there. I'd say that I'd like to believe our stores, I don't know if you can confirm, but like our stores in Orange County tend to do a lot better than LA. And it's crazy to me, but you know, doing a deep dive, I realized that Orange County has a much more collaborative nature. We all like support each other's restaurants. Everyone, you guys post about Halal Guys. Sometimes you're always texting me like, oh, I just ate at Halal Guys. And you post about it, and we kind of support each other. And because of that, I feel like it's that whole rising tide floats all the boats. Because if you think about it, my customer is also the same customer that eats at Viet's restaurants and the same one that eats at Andy's restaurants. You can't eat Halal Guys, or you can't eat, Vox, or you can't eat, Trill Burgers. Well, you probably can do Trill Burgers, but you can't eat the same food every single day. So might as well control the fact that people can't eat the same food every day. And why don't we just support just good entrepreneurs who, just the ecosystem in general is how I see that. And another thing is that because we're all like serial entrepreneurs and we all do like different things, and we can only do one thing like really, really well. I love the fact that, Andy can only focus on the creative stuff. He only should be focusing on, you should be just outsourcing everything else. Same thing as you, like you can only like do one thing really well. And so the moment he gets, and that's what Andy said, we've been able to like travel to Qatar and London, and we got to ride camels in Qatar. That was kind of cool. But because he outsources that to me, and I help them with that stuff so that he can continue being like prolific and creative and doing the best thing that he knows how to do. So yeah, I don't see it as competition at all. I hope they succeed, because that just means more opportunities for all of us in general.
Yeah,
and as long as we
good.
stay close to proximity, I think we all benefit from it. So.
We're rooting for each other, right? I mean, essentially, let's just say if all of Paul projects start to kind of go down a little bit, all of my projects start to go down, but like just one click, if this guy out of nowhere got that one brand that everybody wants, I mean, we're not stopping from like dropping everything we have and just join on board and just hit that one brand and make billions. Right. So it doesn't matter who wins specifically, because it's just one of us wins, all of us will win. Yeah. That's just how it is, because if you really, a lot of people when they compete, they're thinking, that's the pie, right? And then every time that you want more revenue, you have to eat into everyone else's revenue. That concept is completely gone now. Instead of that's the pie, and you try to eat up each other's pie, enlarge the pie. If you can enlarge the pie, as you scale, everybody else scale, and the whole entire microeconomy of where you're living at is also growing. And so essentially right now, like we employ 800, 900 employees, right? Each one of them gonna make from 40 something, 30 something to 40 something part-time, 60 something to 80 something thousand dollars full-time. Well, they're gonna use that money to spend back into our business, his business, but it's all enclosing in this Southern California. And so a lot of people don't know, but Southern California on its own, if just Southern California is a separate country, you move it outside of the US, it's actually the 11th largest economy in the world. Larger than the whole entire country of Brazil. Wow. That's a lot of pie. That's a lot of pie. Yeah. And so instead of trying to eat each other's pie, make it the 10th largest economy in the world. 9th, 8th, right? You name it. And so if you do that enough time, Southern California is golden. Yeah. It's a new gold rush. To be completely honest with you, I think Orange County is start to get into the map too. So, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably even kind of a part of Asian culture to be competitive. I think we all just kind of grew up thinking that, there's only one slice of the pie, and like we're all trying to get the same thing. And I think, even just the way that you guys are talking about kind of knowing yourself and knowing your lane, and then just running so fast in that lane, and then trusting that the person to the right of you is running as fast as they can in their lane, and just trusting. I think that takes a good deal of self-awareness and humility, and then knowing that when you guys are all running in your lanes like as fast as y'all can, when you come together, it's like, we just created we just 10x probably what we could have done, by ourselves, but by doing it together. So then it creates more sustainability, creates more bandwidth for yourself, right? Creates more time, like shrinking time by not having to do everything. I think that's huge. Now, when I think about tech and food, it kind of seems like random. Like how does technology play into food, and how do you guys see that advancing the future of food?
I think there's a lot of different parts to it. I think for myself, Bored and Hungry, the NFT themed restaurant is a good example of what we did, right? We took a risk on buying this picture of a monkey, right? And
how many people has a picture of a monkey in here?
I know Tommy does.
Tommy does. And at the time, what everyone's perception of this picture was, we're using it to flex on social media that we're rich and we're awesome, or we're amazing that we have this image of our monkey as our profile picture. But what I learned through the process, along with our partners Kevin and Philip there, I learned a lot about ownership and IP usage of that, right? Of this, and then what an NFT can actually do, whether you can use the technology as a loyalty program, as a point system, and things being kept on the blockchain, actually knowing that it actually belongs to you. not having to pay royalty rights and other little things off this JPEG, and opening a restaurant concept from it, which is a major risk because the NFT word for most people is a nasty word. And we're accepting crypto payments, which already sounds, what restaurants out there are accepting crypto payments? And these are things that we didn't have a know how to do it. We just had to figure it out. And we didn't actually get the thing working until the morning of opening. We didn't announce that we're accepting crypto till we had the grand opening day. But just being the first to utilize that technology, giving everyone else, ideas of like, hey, you can implement this into your systems as well. And there's a lot of other things that we're doing with the technology, like whether you can pay with crypto for delivery, trying to understand this AI technology, how to read into data, how to speed things up that we naturally as humans can't process as fast. And I think that's going to help in the automation of these projects that we keep scaling and testing out different technology for.
That's big. So yeah, I think what you guys, what you're talking about, Andy, is essentially taking a risk, right? But learning about something enough before jumping into it, right? And so, I think 2020, that at least for myself, that was the whole time I'm like, what is crypto? And like, what's an NFT? And then not even thinking far beyond, like, can this thing also bridge into our real world, right? Because to me, I'm like, Web3 and all this stuff is like, that's just out there somewhere. But you guys, learned how to connect that to real life and in the most basic place of food. Like we all need it. And I think we're gonna see, as the years roll out, we're gonna see what blockchain technology does and how people utilize it, and people are gonna be creative. And you mentioned AI, and that's like everything, right? ChatGPT and Bard and all this other stuff. And I think there's this like fear of AI because it's advancing so fast, like daily. And there's this like, are we gonna enter like Terminator 2 times and stuff like that? I do feel though that, with everything, there's a good and a bad, right? So yeah, if there's gonna be bad actors out there that do stuff that sucks and is stupid, but there's also gonna be people who know how to utilize it well to make even your businesses easier for yourself. So with that, I wanted to ask you guys, in your opinion, this is not gonna go super deep into it, but like, what is something that you feel that AI can't replace?
I think AI can take you quite far, but they can't take away like the creative aspect of something. So for example, I think you can probably use AI to generate all the research needed, trends, things that are really hot, but it only takes you 90% of the way. And that's, I think, the most valuable part of AI. The beauty is now the rest of the 10% is where you get to take all that information. It's what you do with the data. And then that's where you get to create the art. And that's where you get to create something that like serves the marketplace. And of course, AI can't replace the eating of the food and the connect, but it takes you quite far. So I don't know if you guys think about it the same way, but that's what I think.
I think AI can't replace the human interaction. What we learned through the pandemic that people really truly crave about being in person and interacting with one another. I think that's a key aspect to a lot of the work that I do, right? Like the in-person. That's why crypto and NFTs took me a long time to really understand, because it was so digital, and I was like, hey, how do I make this more tangible? And I think with AI, like you said, it gets you 90% of the way, but that last 10%. You still need that human interaction. I think like ghost kitchens, for example, the failure rate is very high, but people still want that in-person. That's why in-person restaurants, like what Kei Concepts is doing, is so successful, because of the hospitality, being able to talk to someone, being able to share a meal with your friends. Like you could cook the same meals at home, but you want to come out, you want to eat with your friends like that. You can't replace that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings about AI. So let me kind of frame this kind of thought process that I have about AI. Once ChatGPT came out, it wasn't the first AI tool that we've ever had. Like people mistaken that, hey, AI is this new shiny thing that everyone's talking about, ChatGPT. It's been with you for the last at least a couple of decades. When was the last time that you go to Amazon and they know exactly what you're looking for. On Netflix, on Google, it's following you everywhere. So AI is just a term that we kind of like umbrella everything, but obviously under there there'll be machine learning and deep learning, neural network and all that. But what we really want to refocus about what AI really does, and they already touched base of like what they cannot replace. Obviously, they cannot eat the food, they cannot really understand you. But there's a story that I really pay attention to in the last month or so. There's an engineer from Google that actually quit because he really think that Google AI was sentient. The fact of the matter is, when they do research, obviously it's not. But the way it thinks is that because it scanned the whole entire universe of words. So it's just ranking, right? What is the next probable word that it's gonna go into? So does it really think? I don't think it thinks. Not there yet. It might. That's JAI, right? So general AI. But we're not there yet. But what I really think is that even with just this level of AI, it can already kind of manipulate people to quit their job. That's where I was like, okay, well, this is getting real deep. And so when I look back into our operations, obviously we use AI all the time. We don't really talk about it, but just we use AI all the time, like even calendar invite, or you going back into your processes, and obviously you plug in all of your SOPs and all that. That's all AI already. But what we're talking about is, what people really think about is how it actually communicates with you. And I think the most disruptive in the whole entire industry of food is going to start with human resource. Regardless of how you think about it. I mean, we tested out multiple things. We actually have our own engineering team. We're going to write our own software. But there's a lot of now ethic question that we have to ask. What is ethical when you use AI? And if you really think about it, most of the AI tools out there, who wrote them? Rich white male. It's skewed that way because they wrote it. Every single thing. I mean, if you go onto Google the other day and you ask who's winning the war in Ukraine and Russia, it say Ukraine. That's not true. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. But it has an opinion. And so, because most people that actually go onto the internet is skewed that way, so the biases are all there. So now I'm scared, because I'm not scared of like what the AI tool is going to replace and all that. I'm more scared about who wrote these softwares. Who's actually engineered these large language models. I don't know. And it's skewed that way very heavily. And so that's one of the reasons why, like, to offset that, to be like the other scale of thing, I strongly agree. And the moment I see all these things, I wanted to step down. Because at that time, I thought I need to focus more on the development side of it to understand how AI would directly affect API. And so for our team, if you go to our office, most of our executives or high levels are it's not rich white male, obviously, it's middle class, color women. That's the only way for you to really offset it. And now you think about AI too in the future. All of the things that you're searching and actually spitting out to you is essentially whatever that they think would further their agenda, right? From outside of it all, everything that we type on the internet, every time you chat to ChatGPT, we're thinking that we're getting the most information. No, you are the product. They're learning from you. They're learning what you think. They're learning what humanity is thinking right now, right? And so that goes into another ethic question of, okay, well, if we're teaching it, shouldn't it pay you? Because essentially, right now, even Wikipedia is having a huge battle of like, hey, all these humans go into Wikipedia and train all these. Where does ChatGPT get all that information from? From the internet. They're getting from Wikipedia. Shouldn't they get paid? That's going to be the new frontier. And I don't know where it's going to go yet, but as far as like why is that important to food, as restaurant-wise, is because the people that are already up there, they already have so much power, money, access to information. that just accelerate their domination. And for people like us, we're a startup, we're a young startup, we're AAPI, we're a women-led company. We're gonna be so far behind. And so that makes us our mission to make sure that AI is ethical. And how does it skew one way or another? That's extremely important to us. And so from our standpoint, what we really think about how we're gonna talk about AI is not just what it does, but why it does it and who did it. And so that takes a little bit more deeper thinking of how do we make this more fair for society.
Yeah, yeah.
And so human resources, the first kind of, I'd say, frontier in blockade that. And I think it's important for all of our smaller groups to essentially share and band together to not let it skew so far ahead on all the big corps and the way that they think and the way they're doing.
Wow, that's very meta. That's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I have so many questions. Yeah.
It's playing chess, man.
Yeah, no, that's really good though. I mean,
I'm just more afraid of that rather than what it could. I mean, you can see how AI is going to be great. It's going to make all of our life a lot better. I'm not a pessimist actually. I'm very optimist as far as AI goes.
Yeah.
I just want it to be optimist in a sense where it also needs to be ethical.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the ethical question never been raised too much, especially during the within the AI API community, where we know for a fact that we're actually being left behind because of these AI tools that are skew so far ahead of us. And that's what I want to start this conversation about. Say, hey, we need to start offset it with another with another subset things. So, and that directly affected to our language and also our I would say food culture as well, because it will directly affect to our food culture. Otherwise, AI is just going to think pizza and burgers are going to be the best thing in the world.
Yeah, you said the word disrupt. How important is it to be able to disrupt a culture, whether that be a blue ice cream or some sort of viral food concept? And I know because, yeah, we live in this social media age, everybody, oh, it's for the gram, we got to get it for the gram. How actually important is that? I guess like a part B question to that is, what are some sort of like misconceptions for a concept that people may think, oh, I have to make sure I have this or my concept will not work? What are some of those sort of like, yeah, like misconceptions or bad advice that you guys have maybe heard that is just not true?
Bad advice, I would say, creating concepts just for social media. I think that's like short-term, like very, very short-term thinking. Yeah, my stuff, I think a lot of the products, I've released over the years, like they look great on camera, but at the end of the day, the product still needs to stand out. It needs to be great. It needs to taste great. If you're gonna come through that door once and you eat it, and if it doesn't taste good, you get that picture once you're out of there, you're gone. And word also spreads like wildfire, right? And I think the early successes, especially with After's ice cream, was the product. It was still a great product, and also the blue ocean strategy. We knew ice cream itself and colors itself would help, but we decided to place it inside of a hot donut, and just do something completely left field. But the product itself still tasted great. You get hot and cold effect and textures and things that we were looking for, even though we weren't chefs. But those are just things that we were looking for in terms of like our general excitement.
That's dope. Do you have any thoughts?
Bad advice. In addition to that, that's great advice, by the way. The other thing is, I hear a lot of people talk about, we want to be the most authentic thing, or we want to be the cheapest option, or we want to be a better Shake Shack or something of that nature. The problem with that is that those guys already dominate the game. So if you try to outdo them, they already have a head start. They're bigger than you. You're going to have to share the pie that we keep talking about. I think the better strategy, and what I've seen all the brands I've worked with that have become like global brands, have been They can't just be better. They have to be different. Like you have to create a different category. You have to be a category killer. For example, way back when the company I worked for, they were the first to start the franchising program for Five Guys Burgers. At the time, it was just the cheap McDonald's fast food or the fine dining chef-driven burger that was $30. At the time, there was no middle market. There's no fast casual better burger that we are just take for granted today. But Five Guys created their own category, and even though I'm an In-N-Out Burger like fan, they created that concept and they dominated it. And ever since then, all the other brands that I've been able to work with that have like taken off have always created their own category and they dominate it. They are known for this, or Afters is known for that, or Fox is known for this. So bad advice is, yeah. Again, for halal guys too, when we first opened, we got so many complaints, like, you guys aren't like authentic Middle Eastern food. And I said, well, we never set out to be. We were just really good New York street food. No one can compare us to that. But if you try to say we're the most authentic Middle Eastern food, there are thousands of other concepts that can beat us on that. We're not trying to compete. That is not a game we can win. The game we can win is the most iconic New York street food. You can't take that away from us. So you got to create your own category. That's probably the biggest advice.
Yeah.
I would say for me in the past few years would be growth, right? Because once you have investor on board, I mean, all they want is scaling, growth, numbers. But to be completely honest, I think when you have the great product, that people will come for it. I think the most important thing was to have a very strong foundation before you scale your even second or third store. I actually have a Cheesecake Factory board member. Well, how many years did it take for Cheesecake going from 1 store to 3? 15 years.
Wow.
So 15 years for Cheesecake to going from 1 store to 3 stores.
Wow.
And people don't realize that, right? Because they all see the big growth and all that. That's Howard, by the way. Howard Gordon, he was on board Cheesecake Factory. The scaling, that's crazy. And so knowing that for a fact, that, that gives us comfort to know that, hey, it takes time. Good things take time. And so I see a lot of business owners really race to like, oh, I need to open my second store, third store, fourth. No, take your time. Really look back into your system, create good SOPs, create good company culture, and go from there. Otherwise, it's just really short-lived, I think.
Yeah, and customer fatigue and everything like that too. You're growing too fast. You could see whether it's marketing can't keep up, infrastructure can't keep up, product quality can't keep up. A lot of those things, and you're scaling. You're trying to open places in different countries or different states. Like, you need to still try to protect that quality and the brand culture. Like, trying to hold together brand culture. I've been involved in that. Going from 1 to 30 stores, like you definitely lose it. Like, 1 store, I'm in the store every single day. But once you get to store 10, 12, 15, I can't visit every store and I can't see everyone's faces and touch and shake hands anymore. And a lot of that, really falls apart. But if you do it right and you grow it correctly and you build the right team members that are basically an extension of you, to the staff, just growing at the right speed, taking your time with it, I think you have a longer reach with it. And you've seen brands like that with Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out. They really take their time when going to different territories and opening up.
Can I add on that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So another piece of bad advice that I get is that in my line of work, a lot of restaurant chains approach me and say, oh, we want to franchise this brand and we want to be like the next big thing, and here's our plan, and we actually want to raise capital and we want to go public. And the problem with that is I think most people are just too focused on that end game. And when they focus on that too much, they care more about, just like going public has that pressure where investors, you're trying to please the investors now, you're not trying to please the customer. And there's like short-term thinking. My advice, usually when I hear that, I actually just say, I can't take this gig. I can't consult for you, because they're too focused on short-sighted, an empty skeleton of a concept. Most concepts that have gone public, have gone international, the stuff that we work on, it's funny, the common denominator is they actually didn't even plan on franchising. They just focus on filling the marketplace need, doing it at a high level, and just being so damn good at what they do that going public, raising capital, getting franchise requests, all that stuff just come naturally. Like that's the lead domino. Like that makes everything else easy. That takes care of it. And the beauty is if you just take such good care of your business, you're so profitable and you delight so many customers that you don't even need to go public. I love, if you guys know Craig Newmark, the founder of Craigslist, he runs like he makes like $600 million a year just from Craigslist alone. And he said famously, death is my exit strategy. Like he can go public if he wants to, but he doesn't need to, there's no pressure. So focus on your product and your concept and make it so that you have options. You don't have to go public and you can just keep it in your family and do generational wealth, or you have other options as well. So don't be too focused on scale and the end game.
It's dangerous to compare yourself to other people too.
Yeah.
Because you see other people grow and like, I need to go that. No, it's actually, if you really think about it, if you ask any one of us, we're not netting that much if you really think about it. I think the mom and pop restaurants sometimes net even more, way more than us.
Wow.
This is because we focus on some of the different games. So I don't think people need to compare one another.
Yeah. We want to give some time for some of these questions that flew in. So
we have
we'll
some
get
questions already.
Let's get some of these Q&As going. What's going on? Oh yes, takeaways. I was gonna get to that after, but we'll do that now too. Give us one takeaway for the room here.
So I thought about this, and I think because the theme here is collaboration. Funny story I told Andy with this morning. I think collaboration is something that most businesses don't think about, or they think about like a strategy or a once or twice type of year campaign. I encourage everyone to think of collaboration as, just like exercising shouldn't just be like something you do, should be a lifestyle. I believe collaboration should just be a mindset and a lifestyle for your business. I think collaboration should happen all the time. I think that should just be part of your business model. I think most people, they're struggling with creating content, right? And they're struggling with advertising, spending money on advertising, whether it's gonna work. I think the game that you can win is trying to form collaborations with other businesses to where you get to pretty much cross-pollinate and actually share each other's customers. It shows that you know your customer, and it's also something else customers, for example, your Matt Black. The reason why he's been able to grow Matt Black, been able to scale across the world, is because people are attracted to the collaboration aspect. So even though he opened Matt Black and the store's super busy when you first grand open it, every quarter, I think you engineered collaboration into it, where you did collaborate with Disney, collaborate with BMW, collaborate with Harry's, collaborate with that anime. I think, what was it?
Persona 5, the game Persona 5. Yes,
Yeah. So every time he does a collaboration, every quarter or something, the stores get flooded again. It's like he can engineer a grand opening every freaking quarter. Like restaurants would kill to do that. And whereas most people don't even think about it, or they think it's inaccessible, like he actually just engineers collaboration. He makes that a priority. So we can learn a lot from like the streetwear culture, where it's not just for streetwear and everything else. Like restaurants can think about that too. I have a lot more thoughts about that, but I won't bore with the details, but that's my thought on collaboration.
I think my takeaway is collaboration builds community. You can't build a whole industry by yourself. You need a community to help uplift that. Collaboration-wise, I've collaborated with everyone sitting here, one way or another. Me and Ben, we did a dance Kinjaz collab with ice cream. That had, when that first conversation came up, everyone's like, what are you talking about, right? But when we did it, there were literally lines down the block.
Yeah, we shut the block down.
Police helicopters flying around. I called you. I was like, hey, this police helicopter, like, I don't know what's going on. We're going to get shut down right now. Lines down the block wrapped around, but people were all showing up, and this ice cream got cleared out by that day. It's just the power of feeding off of each other's fan bases, doing something different, creating something that you would never think of, just getting people excited. It's just getting people excited again. Like I always tell people, when I'm working on different concepts or different ideas, it's the level of excitement for me. If I'm excited, I can't sleep at night. That's the one. That's the thing I'm going to work on. And I'm going ham on that to make sure that I get that launched.
Yeah, it's good.
I say I think they touched most of the points. So my only takeaway is, again, just go back to collaboration, enlarge the pie. That's it. It's that simple. If you collaborate, you enlarge the pie. If you just on your own lane and you just focusing on what you do, every time that you need to grow your revenue, you have to take from someone else's revenue. But if you collaborate, it doesn't matter anymore. Now everybody is kind of like that, neural network that we talked about, right? Obviously, he would probably know another 20, 30, 40, 100 entrepreneurs. I would probably know 100. When we all merge, now that pie become 200 entrepreneurs. With Paul, that's 300, 400. With you, almost 1,000. Now, all of us going to be talking. All of us going to be sharing things. I mean, the next thing you know, the next millionaire or billionaire is going to, hey, I really like this idea. I really like this guy. Here's $20 million. Let's grow it. You never know.
Yeah.
So as important as collaboration, enlarge the pie.
Yeah, it's good.
You don't have, in order for you to win, no one else have to lose.
I love that.
That's sustainable.
Yeah.
That's sustainability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of collaboration, we have one last takeaway. We have a collaboration of ideas turned into real life. We have a.
I'll save that after the.
Oh, we want to save that?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
save it.
Okay, we're
That's
gonna
a
save
surprise.
it. Okay, then we're gonna move into the Q&A then.
Yeah, let's move to the Q&A.
Let's get these
do
questions.
The one last thing.